Yes, my people, welcome back to another episode of the Where's My podcast. Today, we're joined by another special guest. We're joined by Katie Griffith, founder, creative director of the brand Ffith. Thanks for coming on, Katie.
No, thank you for having me.
So basically, when I start whatever conversation I'm having with whatever guest, I basically just talk like for 1 minute about why the guest, you, are in the chair.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously I had seen Ffith on Instagram and that, I'm always searching for new brands and that. Some catch my eye, some don't. And Ffith caught my eye straight away. The clothing looks great. The fits look amazing. The branding's great. The Instagram page looks great. And then the real reason I kind of hit you up, I think you probably know, is I saw the interview you did with Radar magazine. Big up Radar. So obviously I read that. I'm like, wow, this girl's got a story. I like this. I thought, this is a sick interview. Obviously, I don't read a lot, so I thought maybe it would be nice to have Katie on here. We can talk in person and basically kind of talk about similar topics that you spoke about in that interview. So your upbringing, how that affected you in leading you down a fashion path, your goals for the brand, what the brand represents. I really want to talk about that stuff. So yeah, that's it. Thanks so much, Katie.
Amazing. No, thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
So just to get started, where are you from? How did where you come from kind of influence your fashion journey? Basically, where did everything start?
Yeah, so I'm actually from Wales. I'm from South Wales. I'm from Barry.
Basically from Barry?
Barry,
like
yeah.
Barry.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's like 20 minutes from the capital of Wales, which is Cardiff. It's like a little seaside town. I feel like it's not what people think, though. I think people think Wales and think it's like
hills.
Yeah, like,
that's what I think.
But yeah, everyone just keeps it real there. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I lived there, obviously, all my life. Grew up there. I went to uni in Cardiff. And yeah, I didn't leave Wales until I was like 23.
Okay.
Which is kind of mad now. Like, I don't know. Now I've moved, I'm like, I can't believe I was there for so long. But yeah, so growing up in Wales was like, I don't know. I loved it. Like growing up by the sea. And I feel like it has influenced me so much in the things I like and my taste and even like my fashion and that kind of stuff.
It's interesting you say that, Katie. From like the way you described Barry, it doesn't scream like, not to say areas scream fashion, but it doesn't scream fashionable.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like when you were growing up in Barry, like what type of things did people kind of end up doing in their careers? Like, was anyone else from Barry interested in fashion the way you were? Yeah,
that's what's kind of mad is, to answer your question, no, not really. Just doing like general 9 to 5s. Like, it's not the type of place where, without sounding too rude, like I don't want to cuss out Barry too much, but it's like not super aspirational. Do you know what I mean? So growing up, I don't know, I've always been inspired by fashion and super, I don't know, like from just such a young age, I just knew, I don't know how, like I just knew, like I was always like, I always had dolls, like I used to dress my dolls and like make clothes for my dolls and like I had a sewing machine when I was like 13. I asked for a sewing machine and a mannequin.
Wow.
Asked my parents, like even from when I was young, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna learn French because I'm gonna go to Paris and do fashion. I just always knew, I don't know how, but it is kind of interesting because I think sometimes, like especially, I don't know, when I speak to people from London or you see people who are in these certain spaces and you can kind of see their influence. Like I guess even a lot of people from London, like growing up in a major city and there's a lot of fashion around you and so much inspiration, multicultural, like all this different kind of things that would inspire you. Like growing up in a place like Barry, like you don't have any of that. Do you know what I mean? So not even to like big myself up or anything, but it does make me think, like I've always been quite interested and thought about, it is mad that, it's not like me and all my friends are like this and this is the reason I'm like this is because I'm around people like this all the time. I have always just kind of been, this is me and this is my own interest. If that makes sense. You've very always much been self-confident, self-aware. But I don't even know how. Like I don't know where it's come from. But that's just been me. But I do think it is interesting that, like versus I guess say like growing up, if I grew up in London and being in a major city and being around other creatives and being in a diverse multicultural area, like I feel like that's a lot easier to see like the path of inspiration.
100%.
Whereas like for me, the path of inspiration, I don't know, it's like I said, from much younger, I've just kind of known, like I don't know how. I think I've just been interested in like aesthetics and things that look nice. I don't know.
Yeah, no, okay, I totally agree with what you're saying. Like, being someone from London, especially an area like Notting Hill, Ladbroke Grove, I've seen loads of different types of, you know, fashion people, aesthetics. I've seen loads of different boutiques and stuff. Like, I've always seen fashion in it, so naturally it's kind of affected me and like the path I've wanted to go down. So when you were younger, like, where did you kind of look to?
So this is the thing, like I don't even really know. Like I used to do textiles and I'd like look on Vogue website and things like that. Obviously social media wasn't really around the way it is now. Like I used to love Tumblr and things like this, but yeah, it was always just like, again, I feel like it was more of just a core like interest in me, fashion and that kind of stuff, rather than like outside sources.
That's so interesting you're saying that, because I'm thinking back to like the other episodes we've had, and I feel like you're like the first guest that's kind of like attributed your fashion path / career to like it just being in you. Like everybody else said like I've always loved fashion, whatnot, but they've been able to kind of like track it to like an auntie or like an uncle or dad or mum. Do you know what I mean? So that's proper interesting.
I don't know. It's so weird. I don't know where. Like I don't know. Playing with dolls. I don't know.
It just came from somewhere. Thank God it did though. Now I have this convo. But so cool. Obviously you've grown up and whatnot. Went secondary school, sixth form, and then I suppose when you were in school and whatnot, hardly anyone around you would have been like, I want to go to uni and study what you studied.
Yeah, literally no one. Like none of my friends, like my close friends from home, there's like, I don't know, 8-10 of us girls and we're like best friends. But if you put us all together, like you'd laugh because we are just so...
a bunch of misfits.
Yeah, completely. Like we're so different, but we all like love each other just for our individuality. But yeah, like none of my friends really did what I did or what I liked. I did always want to do fashion design. But that's what I spoke about in that interview, is this, I just never, like as a kid, I never knew all the different jobs in fashion, basically. Like, so now, for example, I do fashion buy-in, but I didn't even know fashion buy-in existed. I literally didn't even know it existed till I was like 21. Like, like
when you finished uni.
When I finished uni, basically. So again, I think that comes back to living in an area where you don't really have access to these things. Like in school, my teachers didn't really teach me these things. So I did always want to go down design. But again, this is way before, well, not way before, but before Instagram was like, before you knew you could get opportunities, basically. So when I was younger, I thought the only opportunities in fashion would be to like work for Gucci. Like literally, that's what I thought was like a career in fashion. So being a little kid from Barry, I was like, nah, that's not going to be achievable for me. So I looked into other...
Do you know what, Katie? It's interesting that you're saying that, because everything you said in like the beginning of this conversation has shown me that you were confident. Do you know what I mean? So why did you feel like you couldn't end up in those places?
I think, again, because you just compare yourself to, like I said, like people from London or New York or like Paris. And then like, I'm literally from like a seaside town in Wales. Like you just don't really see how you would get there, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, where's the path there? Like, this is before I kind of really knew. So yeah, after looking into fashion design, I was like, yeah, I don't think, you know, there's going to be good prospects, basically. So that's when I started looking into other fashion courses, and I was looking at fashion marketing, and I actually did fashion promotion, which I don't know if you know what fashion promotion
When I was reading the article, that stuck out to me. It sounds like a really interesting course.
Yeah.
So I've heard of fashion marketing, but never like promotion. And marketing.
To be fair, it is like, when I look back now, I'm like, okay, it was quite a vague course, like, but I feel like I did learn so much. It is more about like branding. It was like to do with magazines as well, like basically how to promote fashion, I guess, like how to do a website, like all this different stuff.
They taught you like how to code and stuff?
No, not to code. More of the basic stuff. Okay. Definitely not to code. I wish they taught me how to code, but no. So yeah, it was, you just kind of learnt things that I guess is obvious, but you don't think of, like, for example, certain fonts, like what certain fonts like denote and this kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean?
What kind of like what they represent?
Yeah. So like, I don't know, like a scripture font, like how as a consumer you would look at that font and automatically
think of certain things. Yeah.
So it's stuff like this that they kind of taught you, which seems obvious, but when someone's teaching it to you, you're like, oh, okay, like that makes sense. So do you know what I mean? Like certain color schemes or all this kind of stuff. So it kind of taught you like how to build a brand, basically. So I think that course, like, I always cuss out the course I did because I'm like, as if I paid how much for this course. Yeah. But to be fair, it did teach me like how to build a brand and probably gave me the confidence in like what you need to build a brand. Do you know what I mean?
As you're talking, I'm thinking like building a brand isn't necessarily something that's like set in stone.
Yeah.
Like there's different ways to go about doing it. Do you know what I mean? So like, how were they able to kind of tell you that you need to do this, this, and this in order to have a brand? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's kind of things like I said, so say if you tomorrow were going to go create a brand, like the first thing you'd think of might be like the brand name. So like, why would you pick the brand name? Like, what's the reason for the brand name? Is it personal? Is it like a word that means something? Like all this kind of stuff. So you'd start with like that. Then it'd be like I said, like fonts, color schemes, like why does certain fonts mean? Like how does that reflect back to your brand? You'd think about your consumer. So like, where does your consumer shop, or what do they do? How does that relate back to your brand? So it's just all these elements of having a brand that, to be fair, some brands may do it without even realizing, but it helps you to think about like where to place your brand. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I feel like it has helped me with Ffith because it's helped me realize where I want to position it. That
sounds like a really useful course though.
Yeah, to be fair.
Yeah. So even when you were
to
saying
be fair,
that,
I cuss it out, but it was like, yeah, it was good.
So are you happy you kind of did this rather than like design?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I would never say I regret anything because it takes you to the path you're on now, isn't it? But like, I do wish, and it's not too late to learn, but I do wish I had more design skills because it would be a lot easier for me having a brand, yeah.
And overall, in terms of like the university experience, I don't know if this question's fair, but like obviously you weren't at one of the fashion universities. Exactly. Which one did you go to? Cardiff. Cardiff's a good uni
even
though,
the
right?
fashion university. So I literally was like, I want to go to Central St. Martin's. I was like, had my heart set on it. I applied to get into Central St. Martin's, didn't get in, and I was like devastated. They were like, no, you need to do a foundation year. So I applied to do a foundation year, basically dropped out because
so you weren't there for a bit?
No, I did a foundation year in Wales still, but they were like, you need to do, the reason I couldn't get in is because I needed like an art foundation level. So I was like, right, okay, let me just do this. Dropped out because it was just too dead. I just couldn't do it. So then I tried applying to other courses at Central St. Martin's because I was like this. I was like, I want to go to Central St. Martin's. Like, it's a prestige fashion university. Like, it's going to get me to where I want to be. I'm going to go to Paris, all this kind of stuff. And then, yeah, didn't get in. And somehow just ended up staying in Cardiff, which, like, I don't know. Back then, I thought it was a bit of like a failure, but I mean, you end up where you want to be regardless of all 100%. That. I know what you mean in terms of like
feeling
just
that
some random Cardiff uni, like which is not got like an established or acclaimed fashion course. And don't get me wrong, I do think it did make it harder for me to get into the fashion industry.
In what sense?
So whilst I was studying, I actually did an internship with, I don't know if you've heard of the brand Other.
Are they like sustainable?
No. So they're a Cardiff-based brand. Okay. It's like a men's streetwear brand.
Oh, sick.
And to be fair, working there as well, I feel like really taught me loads on like how to run a small business. And they were like sick. They were like family run. So I worked there. And I interned there, and then when I finished uni, they offered me a job. So I was working there. I was doing marketing and PR. And like,
how did you find that?
I thought it was sick. Like, I can't lie, I really, really loved it. And to be honest, I would have stayed there longer, but I wanted to leave Cardiff. Finally, I was like, get me out of Wales now. Yeah. So then I moved up to Manchester. So obviously in Manchester, you've got like all the fast fashion brands. So I was like, surely like I've got fashion experience. Like I'll just get a job in one of these brands. Literally couldn't get a job anywhere. Like it took me time. Like I had to just take a job at Royal Bank of Scotland. I was like, I was working at a call centre. And then they had like a temp position come up. Misguided. So I applied in that. It was like a 3-month position, but I was like, do you know what? this might get me in.
Yeah,
And it was in
the door.
trading as well, which is like...
What's that?
Trading is like... So, I don't know why I struggle to explain trading.
Don't worry, I struggle to explain my job. As well.
Trading is like, so basically how the site trades. Like, we would look at what promotions to run, like what's put on the homepage, like we'd look at like what has better click through, like all this kind of stuff, like how the site shopfront trades.
So it was fashion, but it wasn't necessarily what you wanted to be doing.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And to be fair, like I actually really enjoyed it, but yeah, it wasn't anything fashion related really. So then when I was at Misguided, that's when I finally, because during all this time, like I'm still applying to other fashion jobs, like buy-in and marketing, and like just not hearing anything. So then whilst I was in Misguided, I applied to do buy-in in Misguided, and they gave me an internal interview. So that's how I finally got into it. But yeah, like it was
a long journey.
Yeah,
like, difficult as well.
It was, yeah.
How comes, you know how you're saying how you was applying for loads of jobs and stuff, you had the experience. Why do you think you weren't able to get a job as quickly as you wanted?
This is what's mad. Like, I actually don't know. Like, I don't know what sometimes the criteria is that they look for. Like, because like I said, I consider myself as like really passionate about fashion, like all this kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know, maybe it's my CV, but that's why that's when then I used to think, oh, is it because
I didn't go to
it's
one
like
of
a
these?
Cardiff uni, or like, because a lot of the girls who are in these buying positions or marketing positions, like they do come from like Manchester universities, and I think they probably, I mean, they've done fashion in Manchester, and then they're working in these Manchester brands.
Yeah, they probably even built their networks.
Do you know what I mean? So they've got, I don't really know, to be honest, but yeah, I was surprised at how much of a struggle I found it.
Cool. So obviously that was all like the education, work side of stuff. So when does Ffith come? In fact, before we get to Ffith, I remember you saying in the interview that you had started like a brand with one of your friends. Yeah. So how old were you when you started that? Why did you start that? What was it?
Whilst I was in uni, one of my good friends in uni who I used to live with, so she worked at a vintage wholesaler. And this was when like Depop was, I say first, like it had probably been around for a bit, but it was when Depop was hot, basically. Yeah. And like everyone was loving off vintage, and people were buying vintage. So she worked at this vintage wholesaler in Cardiff, and we were like, why don't we just both of us put some of our student loan into just buying stock?
Risky.
I know. I know, to be fair, we didn't put that much in though. I think we only put like £400.
Oh, that's calm. That's calm.
Yeah, it wasn't too much of an investment. But yeah, we were like, let's just put some money into just buying some vintage stock from this wholesaler, like you know the wholesaler, and we can just sell it on Depop basically. So that's what we did. We used to go to the wholesalers, go pick in. So that's where you just dig through the barrels of clothes and like pick out all the stuff you want. And then yeah, we just shoot it and put it on Depop, and we would do like little shoots with some of like the local like Cardiff girls and models and things like that. So that's basically how we started that. And then once we must have started that in like 2017, and then we started just printing some logo tees. Do you know what I mean? Like literally just getting Gildan blanks. And
so this brand, vintage reselling brand,
yeah,
you made a logo for it.
Yeah, so it was called Girls Don't Cry, and we like
Girls Don't Cry.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So we like branded this whole thing, and so we did all that basically.
Wait, why was it called Girls Don't Cry?
Because I love Frank Ocean, and Frank Ocean has an album called like Boys Don't Cry, so we just changed it to Girls Don't Cry.
Oh, is that simple?
No, it was that simple. No, we were literally just like, yeah, that'll do. So yeah, so we had this brand. We started doing blanks and like selling blanks with like logos and stuff on, and like our own little graphics. And we were like, we weren't big on Depop, but we had like good opportunities with Depop. Depop asked us to go to like a market, and we went to like a seller's market, and we would do stuff with Depop. So yeah, it was going good. To be honest, like I actually thought we would like grow that and do that, but sadly me and my friend, we kind of just went our separate ways because we were obviously living together whilst we were doing it, but then we weren't living together. She was in Cardiff, I was in Manchester at the time, so it just became quite difficult. So we just kind of said, should we just go our separate ways with it? So I took Ffith forward, and then I took the Instagram platform and she took the Depop platform. Okay. So that's when I started to transition it.
That sounds like a really, I don't know if wholesome's the right word, but I think it's sick how you were at uni and you were balancing both at the same time. Yeah. And it sounds like you would have learned a lot from that sort of experience. So what were like the main things you learned?
I actually learned so much from that, you know. I learned like even things like content creation and stuff, because obviously at the time we were just having fun with it, really. Like we would literally just hit up local girls, we would style them and use our own accessories, and like it was just no pressure to it. Do you know what I mean? We weren't even really thinking about like, oh, what do we want the brand to represent, or how do we want it to look? We were literally just having fun, like doing shoots. So that really helped me learn how to do content, and also do content for free, basically, because we would hit up local like photographers, local like models. Like I said, like we had no money to, do you know what I mean? We weren't making any profit from this, really. So yeah, it kind of taught me how to network, I guess. Do you know what I mean? Like how to build relationships.
Sorry, Kate, I have 2 questions from that. How were you able to make content for free, and how important is content in like fashion marketing?
Yeah, so making content for free when you're first starting up, like, yeah, I feel like it's really important to find ways to make content for free, because especially, you know, it's expensive, like to like get a studio and models and photographers. So to do stuff for free, I feel like in this, like I said, this was back in 2017. So I think back then people, I don't know, maybe it is still the same, but I did find people were more open to just shooting and the opportunity. And I don't know if maybe it's because it's in Cardiff. So again, the scene in Cardiff is very small. So people were, I don't know, like just friendly, helpful, like everyone was helping each other out, basically, kind of thing. And I think because they knew we weren't profiting from it, like
they wouldn't expect.
It was just a vibe. Do you know what I mean? Like we would just go to just enjoy it, basically. So even like now with Ffith, where I can, like I try to get some, not like free content, but even if it's like me just using a camera and just hitting up girls and seeing if they want to shoot. But I do think it's important to, well, it's not important, it depends, but it does help, I think, sometimes to get content that's like free, essentially.
I suppose when you're first starting, you have to be as resourceful as possible.
Yeah, basically. Like that's the thing. It's not like I'm like, even with Ffith at the moment, or previously, like when I was first starting, like it's not like I'm making loads and loads of money and I'm trying to exploit people. Like it's not that at all. It is literally a case of I've got no money. Like I want to make some content. Like let's just help each other out. Let's just like catch a vibe. Sometimes, do you know what I mean? Like kind of like what we were saying, not everything should be transactional.
100%,
sometimes it should just be,
let's catch a vibe.
Yeah, catch a vibe. Like help each other out as well. Like I don't know. But to be fair, even with Ffith and some of the girls I've worked with in London, like they've been so helpful. Like they've done stuff for free. Like there's so many wavy people out there who like actually are up for just support. Just support, and shout out those people. Do you know what I mean?
No, that's something I've kind of picked up from just looking at your socials and stuff, and even at the Marbeck event, we'll talk about that later. I noticed you came with like a little squad, like
little squaddy.
So it's good that you kind of got people around you that are like willing to help and stuff. But so obviously Girls Don't Cry kind of split up. So when did Ffith come into the equation then?
So after Girls Don't Cry, I basically was using the Instagram platform as just like Tumblr, basically. Literally, that was kind of my inspiration behind it.
Reposting pictures that you like and stuff like that.
Basically, like an aesthetics page kind of thing. So I was just posting stuff I like and like keeping building following from doing this. And then when lockdown came, so I knew I wanted my own brand one day anyway. And then when lockdown came, that's when, I just kind of started taking it seriously. And just started, like, me and my boyfriend, we would talk about, because I was going to go down a similar route to what I did with Girls Don't Cry and do like kind of reselling things. And then Jam was kind of like, that's my boyfriend, he was like, you should do what actually you're passionate about.
Because obviously you've been speaking, like when you were young, you kind of you always wanted to do this. So how come at that point you still weren't thinking, now's my time to do what I want to do?
Again, I think like maybe this whole thing of like flipping things and like getting money and like that was still in my head of just like, oh, it'll be easier to just do this, it'll be easier to just buy and sell, hustle. Like basically. And again, at this point I had no money, so but Jan was like, no, like you should actually take time and think about like what you want to do as a brand and do what you're passionate about, rather than just chasing this like money, and bearing in mind like it's not exactly big money I'm chasing, like flipping stuff is like small money for the effort you're putting in. So that's when then I started taking it, I guess, seriously, and I was like, no, you're actually so right, like I've got the skills, like I know what to do, like why would I waste more time just, you know what I mean, like
yeah, why would I delay what is supposedly inevitable for me?
Basically. So yeah, that obviously massively helped me and made me really think about, okay, like let me do this, like let me just make my own brand, let me make it something I'm passionate about, let me make it part of me, rather than just something I didn't really, because even with Girls Don't Cry, like obviously I was passionate about it to a certain extent, but it wasn't like me, like it wasn't like, it was just fun kind of stuff, do you know what I mean? So that's when, that's basically how Ffith first kind of came about. So that's when we were thinking about obviously names, and like I said, that's where I guess my uni course came in. Because so Ffith obviously comes from my surname Griffith, which bare people don't know, and everyone's always like, how do you pronounce it?
It's a sick name though. I never would have guessed from like seeing it. I never would have thought it's from your name.
Yeah, literally. So I wanted something. So at first, you know, you go down the standard, like thinking of like actual words and all this kind of stuff. And then we would like, because Jam helped me again pick the name, and then we were just kind of like, I know, big up Jams. So then we just started thinking about more personal stuff, and then we were doing stuff with my name, and do you know what I mean, mixing that around, and even using like, I was looking at like my grandparents' names, or do you know what I mean, like making it personal. Yeah. So that's when then we thought of Ffith, and then it just
what was the moment like when, like who said it? Who said Ffith?
I think it was me. Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong, John.
No, it's me, no.
Charles is claiming it.
It was me. Fuck you, see? It was me. I thought it was me. Yeah. So yeah, that's when then, and I don't know, like the way it's written, because it's symmetrical, like I just love that kind of stuff. And already I'm thinking of like how that's going to look as a font, and do you know what I mean? So I was like, yeah, no, this is it. And then, so that's when then we were kind of thinking of course, like the meaning is my surname. But then that's when me and John were also like, now let's make an acronym as well. So then we were thinking of all different like acronyms you can make. So it also stands for females in the hustle.
I like that.
Yeah, and then that basically relates back to obviously like the ethos of the brand and stuff. So it is about like women's streetwear and like women taking up space and like in this market, but also women who like, do you know what I mean, women who are independent, strong, like they make their money, like all this kind of vibes.
Yeah, and I really feel like the aesthetic of the brand represents the ethos, the message you're trying to put across. Like, I suppose that's your course coming into it as well. And whatnot. But yes, I have a few questions around like Ffith. So obviously you thought of the name, you thought of the acronym, and I suppose this is the point where like all the hard work starts. So like find the manufacturers and all of this stuff. Like, what was the beginning of that process like?
So the first thing I did before I even thought about manufacturers is I designed the collection.
Okay, so where did you learn to do all of that?
I literally learned off YouTube. So this is in lockdown. Oh my days, if you could see the first designs I did, how bad were they? And at one point I was like, I'm actually not going to be able to do this. But I was like, I can't own my own brand without being able, like, don't get me wrong. So first of all, I'm sketching them in my sketch pad, and even that, like, I'm not a drawer. Like my sketches were dead, but I knew what they meant. So then I was like, right, okay. So I literally was just watching courses on YouTube, and this is the amazing thing about YouTube. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't need to go to fashion uni or anything to learn these things. You can actually learn on YouTube.
When you say courses, was it like just free courses that people had uploaded?
Yeah, just literally if you just search like how to make fashion designs in Illustrator. So I used Adobe Illustrator. And so the first ones I did, terrible. Like, so bad. And I remember thinking like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. Like, I can't even do the designs. But I just stuck at it basically and just kept drawing them out
just kept getting better
and got better. I literally got better. I'm still not the best. And there's so many technical things as well, like a certain line can mean a certain type of thread and like all this kind of stuff, which again, I'm still learning.
Gonna come over time.
Exactly, and that's fine. And they are getting better. My sketches are getting better. But it's that was the first thing I did. So it was like, okay, I need to actually learn how to do this. So once I had all the designs together, so I literally had the designs together, say maybe like April, May 2020. So I've got all my designs now. This is that when I'm like, okay, now I need to find a manufacturer.
Nightmare.
it's just such a minefield. Like, I think I was literally, I remember whilst I was looking for manufacturers, and I was like, this is the reason like loads of people don't have brands, you know, because it's so difficult and it's so hard to know. Do you know what I mean? How do you know if they're a good manufacturer? Like, how do you know that they're like ethical, treating their workers right? How do you know the fabric quality is any good? Like, how do you know? Like, you speak to these manufacturers, and of course they just tell you what you want to hear.
100%.
And then you've also got the struggle of MOQs, so that's minimum order quantity. So a lot of manufacturers will only do like 200, 500 minimum order quantity. So when, like, for example, like my first collection, like you're only doing say like 50 pieces. So you need to find manufacturers that will do such low quantities. So yeah, it was really, really difficult. I was just looking online, like I was on LinkedIn as well, and like having manufacturers message me on LinkedIn. But actually the first manufacturer I used was actually recommended to me by my friends. They've got their own brand as well. Shout out ASL.
I'll follow them. What are they called?
ASL.
ASL. Cool.
So yeah, so they recommended their manufacturer to me. So I did it through those in the end. But yeah, like even to this day, I'm still working on that. I'm still working on finding better manufacturers, finding good quality, do you know what I mean? All this kind of stuff. And again, trying to make sure it's ethical and trying to make sure
the main things, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's literally like even brands that say they're ethical, I don't know how you can fully know unless you go. That's why I'm like now basically need to plan a trip or like go to some of these manufacturers to actually go and see, because you literally you wouldn't know. And even sometimes when you go to these places, they can hide certain stuff. So
naturally.
So that's, I would say, like the biggest hurdle and the hardest part of finding a brand. But you just making a brand, but you just need to just be prepared to kind of spend money and maybe lose money along the way as well, which is difficult.
And Katie, you know how obviously you spoke about finding the manufacturer. One thing I think is important to also discuss is what you actually need to give to the manufacturer. Because I think that's, obviously me, I don't design clothes myself, innit? But from speaking to people, I've seen that there's so many things like tech packs. And so how did you kind of learn how that process goes?
So even with the tech pack, so basically I had my first design. So obviously I'd done these designs, very B-Tech version of these designs. And that's when then I worked with, so the manufacturer I worked with my first collection, they're based in Pakistan, but the factory is, but they've got a team in the UK. So I worked with the UK team. So that's how you kind of, you liaise with the UK team and they work with the factory. So it's kind of a middleman way to do it, because usually you would just work directly with the factory. But for a first collection, like this was a lot more safe for me to do, because you're trusting the UK team that, you know, this is an ethical factory and all this kind of stuff is a good factory. So I had a like consultation with the woman who owns this factory, and she basically took my designs and she put them into a tech pack for me. Wow. But I paid for this service though. So once she'd done it the first time, that's when then I knew how to do it. So now going forward, like I know what needs to be in a tech pack. But basically you need obviously the drawing of the design. I included like all the measurements, so even that in itself is like a minefield, like measuring every, do you know what I mean, the
everyone's
Lego
body type's so different.
Exactly. So sending all like your measurements, then you need to put details of, do you know what I mean, like what type of fabric it is, if you want certain fabric weights, be specific on that, colors, just all this kind of stuff. Basically you need to include all of this in your tech pack, which again, as someone who like, even me, like this is brand new to me, like, but again, YouTube's your best friend. Like you can just search on YouTube. And
I suppose your course at uni didn't teach you any of this stuff, innit?
No, none of this. And that's why, like, sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I had done fashion design, because I think like you would learn all of this in a design uni, how to do a tech pack.
But a design course wouldn't necessarily teach you how to do the marketing and brand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I never regret. So.
And do you know what, Katie? Yeah, this question's more like just an opinion based question. Yeah, like, what do you think is more important?
Do you know what? Like,
And do you know why I asked that? Because I feel like nowadays, like with social media and whatnot, like, for example, not to disrespect any brands, I'm not going to mention any names or anything like that, but I've like seen brands on Instagram, they're doing whatever they're doing, they're blowing up or whatever, and then I've bought a piece and I've been really underwhelmed.
so this is basically like, this again is a conversation me and Jam have all the time, because in our generation, and this is something that I'm trying to tap into more, and that's what I'm saying, like I want to learn how to actually, you know, sew myself and design myself and know these things, because I feel like craftsmanship is like, it gets lost sometimes, and this is such a big thing with Instagram generation, is like the actual craftsmanship is not there sometimes. And like, you know, even I'm not saying like I'm like some mad craftsman, because I'm not, but that's where I want to be at. And that's sometimes where I think if I'd have done a design course, like you really would have that craftsmanship. So yeah, which I don't know, I personally think that's really important. And that's where sometimes I think some of these I don't know, like bigger designers or brands, it comes from that like craftsmanship and being like a master at what you do. Whereas obviously my course was sick because it taught me how to like build a brand and how to be an entrepreneur and all these kind of things, but you need that craftsmanship. Do you know what I mean? So that's what I'm learning as I go
to do both, and eventually you'll get to the point where you'll have they collide, and that's when exponential growth. I feel like, what was I gonna say? Oh my gosh, I forgot what I was gonna say. I had a really good point to make. Cool. Hopefully it comes back to me. But one thing I noticed from your interview with Radar, you speak a lot about streetwear and how important women in streetwear are. And when you said that, it really got me thinking, because obviously, Where's My TV, we do what we do. Like I look at so many brands, but I didn't realize that there's not, or I haven't seen a lot of female streetwear brands. So why did you kind of decide to do streetwear? What does streetwear represent to you? Like, why is it so important for women to like cultivate a streetwear space?
Yeah, so that's what, again, this is where like when I go back to thinking about Ffith and what I wanted it to be, like my personal fashion taste is like, I love streetwear mainly because I just like how it's comfy, like it's functional. Like this is just kind of like my taste and what I like. So being someone who buys streetwear, it's so hard as a woman to find like trousers that fit properly, or like tees that fit properly, or, you know, like I would wear a lot of brands that's like, it's menswear brands, and okay, they may have done a female line, or you're wearing menswear brands and you're wearing the menswear pieces, and it just fits obviously your body differently as a woman. So that was kind of an area that I saw that I was like, no, I want it to be like streetwear, but that is made to fit women and like is for women. Like it's not a unisex streetwear brand, or it's not a men's streetwear brand that I'm then making a women's wear line. Like I want it to just be solely focused on women, like for women's bodies. And like I was saying, like to take up market space in this area, because I feel like it is such like a male dominated, but there's like so many women who love streetwear, do you know what I mean, and love like this kind of aesthetic. So
why do you think it is so male dominated then?
I think just in history, like when you look at like streetwear culture, where it comes from, like sports, you know what I mean, like skateboarding or like this kind of stuff is like, it is generally more male dominated areas. So naturally I think that's why it's more male dominated. Even like when you look at history and how women dress, like women have not really worn tracksuits and stuff like even like in work, I work with people who would say before the pandemic they would never dream of buying a tracksuit, wearing a tracksuit.
Crazy.
That's what I mean. But there's so many people who like, for women, like they just wouldn't wear this kind of stuff. So I think it's only recently, and even just in general, like in our lifetime, I think we've only seen streetwear come into like mass fashion and like, maybe not mass fashion, but into mainstream fashion and into like high fashion. So I think it's all quite new and relative. Whereas, like I said, if you look at the heritage of streetwear, it's in like skateboarding or like this kind of like male dominated sport.
Exactly.
So I think like it does make sense, but I just think it's time for women to come.
No, 100%.
Take up some of that space.
100%. It is time for a change, man. And I think that speaks more to the point you're making about women dressing differently now. Do you know what I mean? Like women don't have to wear dresses to be a woman. Do you know what I mean? Like women should be allowed to wear whatever they want.
Exactly.
So I was really happy, like when I was reading the interview, hearing everything you're saying, because we do need more female streetwear brands. Do you know what I mean? Like just because you're a woman and you want to design doesn't mean you have to design a dress.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But so I was on your website, and obviously I'm looking at the pieces and that they're sick. They're really affordable.
Yeah.
Is that something that's important to you?
Yeah, so this is something which, to be fair, even now sometimes when I'm looking at my numbers, I'm like, why did I make this so cheap? Because like for me, this is something like I always speak about. I think you should price an item at what you look at and think the item is worth, and work your like margin and your cost price of the item towards that, rather than, you know, if an item costs however much to manufacture, rather than saying, oh, well, I want to make 3 times that, like, and just putting it at that price. To me, I don't know, I disagree with that. I think you should price the item at what you think the item is worth, and work that way. You know, even if it is something as simple as just a plain tee, but I don't know, it might be like really high quality fabric, heavy fabric, and this type of stuff. So in which case it warrants being a higher price point, because like to me, I would look at that and be like, okay, it's worth that because like it's a good quality fabric.
Gonna last longer.
Yeah, it's gonna last longer, this kind of stuff, rather than just however much the item costs to manufacture, just timesing it by 3 or timesing it by 4 and just selling it for that just because you want to make profit. So that's kind of how I do my pricing architecture. But
do you also think about like competitors? So like how much they charge for things that are similar to yours, or do you tend to just focus on your process?
I guess so. Yeah and no. Like I do just focus on my process, but obviously you look at the market as well and like
naturally economics in it.
Yeah,
naturally,
do you know what I mean? So naturally my pricing architecture, and like I said, I do buy in, so that's what we do as well, is like we price items and we look at pricing architectures and stuff. So yeah, I just kind of do it from that, really.
So other than that, how has your career in buying helped you in owning Ffith?
It's actually helped me so much, because it helps me to understand. So in buy-in, do you know what buy-in?
No, kind of, not really though.
So buy-in is basically, depending on like who or what you work for, like say if you work for like a fast fashion brand. So I currently work for ASOS. So
sick.
So yeah, so when you're buying, depending on who you're buying for, the designers will design the collection. So they'll design based on trends, based on everything, you know, as flamboyant, whatever as they want. And then they send those designs to the suppliers. The suppliers then send you a sample, and that's when it kind of gets handed over to the buying team. So when you get the sample, you take it and to be fitted. Obviously, you look at what the fit's like, and if you want to take it forward, you obviously tell the manufacturer you want to take it forward, and they'll give you like the cost price. So once you get the samples, you get your manufacturer price, and then say you want to retail it at £35, and especially these fast fashion websites, like they want to retail it at like a lower price. That's when then as the buyer, like the manufacturer might say this costs £12 and it might not hit your margin. So you need to, you know, ask for a cheaper fabric, ask to take certain details off the top. So you're kind of learning how to, like, how can I explain? It just kind of helps you learn about the process of what it actually costs the manufacturer, like what, just about different details and things like that. Do you know what I mean? Like what certain washes might cost, or certain prints, or certain finishes or cuts, or certain details. And it helps you to know, like how the manufacturer does it, what it takes for them to do it, what it costs for them to do it, like all this kind of wider understanding of how manufacturers work, and then how that influences you as a buyer and what it's going to cost you. Also then going into fits, I've learned so much from being in fitting sessions, because like you work with garment techs, and they're amazing, and they're just really knowledgeable on how like previously from doing this, I didn't realize, you know, something like the trouser rise, which you might not even think about if you reduce the trouser rise, how that affects the leg or the leg open. Do you know what I mean? All these little things that inform each other, which as a consumer, you probably just get a hoodie and it's like, oh, this fits nice. But
Literally.
the reason it fits nice is because the shoulder might drop a certain way, or the hoodie, or I don't know, like the seams might be in a certain place, which you learn in Ffith, basically.
Yeah.
So I've learned so much being there. Yeah, it has definitely helped me to understand.
And do you know what, Kate? I'm really happy you started speaking about fits and stuff, because obviously being a female designer, designing female streetwear, like fitted clothing as well. I don't know if that's the right word for it.
No,
fitted,
yeah, it is.
Right word?
I'd say so.
Yeah. Like, how important is like inclusivity to you and Ffith when it comes to like different body types?
Yeah, so this is something that's really important to me. I feel like, again, there's still more work even for Ffith and for us to do in that area of inclusivity, but this is something that going forward, so previously, yeah, it's super important to me. Like, I've wanted to do like a full range of sizes, but even the full range of sizes I do at the moment. So I think this is something that people don't realize with smaller brands is, say if you've got an order of 50 units, extra small to extra large, for example, you couldn't do, like, I would love to do extra small to extra large, but you can't, because of the amount of units you've got, the manufacturers simply won't do it, because it doesn't make sense for them, because like they have to cut the pattern basically for each of that size. So for smaller brands, it's harder to be as inclusive. But even then, like when I was first working with the manufacturer, they were saying to me, you know, don't bother doing XL, like no one's going to buy that in an XL, or just do this size range. And I was like, no, like I want everything in a full size range. And yeah, like I said, it is super important, but I think I want it to be like to grow going forward. And I think when I do fits, so for example, this first collection, when I fitted it, I used just a size small sample and I fitted that on size smalls, whereas I would love in future to get a full size range and actually see that on different sized women, because, you know, like even some of the pieces, even the size extra large, for example, I would want to try that on like someone who would actually wear it. Do you know what I mean?
100%. And do you know what, Katie? I find it really interesting in terms of the point you made around how it's smaller. It's more difficult for smaller brands to not necessarily be inclusive, but to the
actual logistics of it. Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes you feel like the pressure put on up and coming brands to be inclusive is a bit unfair. Yeah. I think it, like I said, it's more so just the logistics of it. I think sometimes, you know, I don't know, different brands are different. But for me personally, yeah, if someone, I've not had any feedback really of anyone saying, oh, can you do bigger sizing? But I'm sure they're probably, or even smaller sizing to be fair, but I'm sure there have been some customers who maybe couldn't buy it because they might not have had the sizing. But logistically at the moment, it just, I physically can't really. So, yeah. Soon though, God willing.
Soon for sure.
So we haven't got long left, but I just want to speak more about your goals for Ffith and what you intend to do with Ffith, because I'm happy that we're having this conversation really early on in your journey.
Because this one thing, like even when you asked me to do this, I was thinking like, at first I was thinking, I don't think I'm qualified to do this, but it is good sometimes to document the journey and
100%
realize where you've come up to. But yeah, goals for for 2022, goals. So to be honest, again, my manufacturers, I want to like get my manufacturers right. I want to improve my craftsmanship. I want to continue, like for me to learn, do you know what I mean? Like actually become really skilled. And kind of improve on that. That's one massive goal. And to start kind of like turning designs better. So again, because of my manufacturers, once I've got a tighter manufacturer, I can like design and turn up designs a bit more. Whereas at the moment, because I don't have such a smooth manufacturing process, it's a bit start and stop. So that's definitely a goal. I'm still working full time at the moment. So by the end of next year, I would love to be working full time over there. Yeah, that's a huge goal. And yeah, just to keep growing the like family, I guess, and growing like the people I'm working with and the fan base.
I've got Katie I just wanted to say, I wanted to touch on what you were basically saying before about feeling not like qualified to have this conversation yet. But I feel like for a lot of the listeners, hearing from someone like you who was really like at the beginning is a lot more useful than maybe listening to a conversation with someone that's like 10 years in, because during that conversation we could be speaking about the stuff they've done in like the past 5 years rather than the stuff they did in the first year. Do you know what I mean?
No, it's so true. And I think hopefully it's helpful and relatable to people who might be in a position where they're like, oh, I would love to start my own brand but don't know how to start. Because I actually do get quite a lot of DMs of girls saying to me like, I
can imagine,
how do you start? And like I love speaking to people on stuff like that, because you know, when I was first starting, I would love to have someone kind of be like, oh, do this, try this. So yeah, I think it does help to have these conversations.
This is a bit of market research for me, but when you like first started on YouTube, like where obviously you're typing things like, how to design this and how to design that, but like where else would you go? Were there any like particular channels that you would go on to like find out specific things?
Do you know what? There was this one channel where like she's amazing and she taught me all the tech pack stuff, but I can't remember it, but I'll try and find it and send it to you, and you can put it in the comments, because she was amazing. Katie,
so you know, obviously we've been speaking about like not the battle, but like the difference. How can I say the battle? Like the intersection between like craftsmanship and the actual, I don't know, the not necessarily beauty, but how good the clothes are. Aligned with like the branding, so the numbers on Instagram and all this stuff. Being such a new brand, how do you kind of stay motivated to keep going when it's like what you're doing isn't necessarily reflected in how much the brand is growing? I don't know if you can relate to that.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think for me, it's not, I'm quite big on just like let me just focus on my thing. Let me do like even the pieces I put out, like I put out pieces that I want, like the stuff I put out is literally stuff that I want to wear. And I'm just making it and putting it out. And like, that's what I want to do for all my collections. Like, I don't want to ever make stuff because I'm like, oh, this is on trend, or this is what I should be doing, or let me try and be more out there. Like, I literally just want it to be me. And that's where I think I'm not trying to focus too much on all that other kind of stuff, basically. Again, that's where I just think I just want to put all my energy into like me making sure I'm staying true to myself, being authentic, putting my own craftsmanship in, all this kind of stuff, and everything else, to be honest, can come and go. Because even, you know, when you look at followers and all this kind of stuff, it's like I'd rather have less followers of people who actually fuck with my stuff and they get it and they are aligned with the brand, rather than bare people following me or wearing it just because it's on trend, and then as soon as it's off trend, they're not interested anymore. I
think that's a really good mentality to have, because nowadays with social media, things come and go so quick. So if you do have that mentality of just trying to follow the trends, eventually when what you do is kind of out of trend, no one's really going to mess with you.
Which inevitably it will. Do you know what I mean? Like you said, trends are always revolving, and I think that's where sometimes brands mess up, because you need to just keep your integrity and keep doing what your brand, you know what I mean? Like what's true to you, basically.
And that's why I think it's so good that Ffith has a very strong core message. Do you know what I mean? What does the acronym stand for again?
For females in the hustle.
For females in the hustle. Don't forget that.
Females
in the hustle. So I've got 2 more questions. You obviously spoke about goals for 2022, but Katie Griffith, do you have like any long-term goals within fashion?
My long-term goal is literally to just work on Ffith, like that, just for it to be fully sustainable, for me to just work on that full time. Like, you know, like we were talking earlier, like I don't necessarily want to be a millionaire, or I mean I do, but do you know what I mean? Like I will happily just take on modest income and just be happy and just do this full time and just, you know, find fulfillment in that. That's basically my long-term goal and dream. Like I'm trying to
that's good. That's good to hear. And finally, we asked this to all of our guests. You've given us a lot of advice, or our listeners a lot of advice throughout this conversation. Is there like one piece of advice you could leave our listeners with?
Oh, that's a good one. I feel like, again, this is probably a shameless plug because it comes back to my first collection, but the name of my first collection is Anything You Want Is Yours. And that's something that like is like my mantra, because I just feel like anything you want is yours. Like you're capable of doing anything you want to do. And I feel like if, you know, I think we're half the time, like we're in our own way because we think, you know, again, like, oh no, I'm from Barry, like I can't do that, or I don't have enough followers, or, you know, people might think this of me if I do this, but literally anything you want to do is yours if you just do it. Do you know what I mean? That's my piece of advice and my mantra.
I love that. Hey, Katie, this was a sick conversation.
Oh, I hope so.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, and you said this was like your first podcast.
Yeah,
as well.
It's my first podcast.
No, you're natural, honestly. I can't lie, you're a natural, man. It was sick. I'm looking forward to hopefully in the next few years when you achieve more stuff, we can have another conversation.
Yeah.
We can have another conversation.
Yeah, 100%. No,
so
this
thanks
has
for coming on.
So lovely.
Where can they find you?
So you can find me on Instagram is _Ffith, Ffith, Ffith.com. That's where obviously everything's being sold. I'm also being stocked in Marbeck and Friends store.
Big up Marbeck and Friends, man.
Big up yeah, 100%. Big up Laddie, big up Marbeck. You can find that in Camden, by Camden Lock. And yeah, that's it for now.
What about your personal? You don't want to give that out?
Stay tuned. I mean, you can follow my personal. There's nothing much going on. Katie Griffith on Insta.
Yeah, thank you so much, Katie. Obviously, you guys, I say the same thing at the end of every episode. Thank you for listening. You know where to find us. Instagram, WMTV_LDN. LinkedIn, we're going to get that popping. Twitter, we'll get that popping. YouTube, WMTV LDN. But yeah, as I always say, guys, keep it locked. TikTok, Gable, you bloody legend. TikTok, yeah. By now, TikTok is going to be popping. What's our TikTok called again?
Good start.
We'll start. I'll send it to you, lot. But anyway, as I always say, keep it locked. If you ever want to take in future episodes on the go, you can also find us on Apple Music and Spotify. When you get there, please, if you don't mind, leave us a 5-star review and whatnot. It would definitely help. And yeah, as I always say, keep it locked.